We begin with breaking news from the Treasury. And ahead of our budget tomorrow, the Chancellor's just announced an increase to the national living wage and the national minimum wage for next year. Let's bring in our chief political correspondent, John Craig. John, important rumours on juries in Crown Courts this afternoon. We'll talk to you about that in a moment. But tell us about these wage increases for some of the lowest paid workers.
These normally go up in the budget, but we've learnt the night before this time. Good news for young people in particular, for the numbers going up. Let me take you through the numbers. For the national living wage, first of all, that is going up by 4.1% to £12.71. That's for people 21 years and over. It's a 50p increase. But here's the big one for the national minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds. That is going up by a whopping 8.5% to £10.85, 85p increase. Government says that'll benefit them by £1,500 a year, £900 a year for the older people. And thirdly, for 16 and 17-year-olds and apprentices, the national minimum wage is going up by 6% to £8. That's a 45p increase. Well, the Chancellor, making this announcement, has said this. She says, I know the cost of living is still the #1 issue for working people, and that the economy isn't working well enough for those on the lowest incomes. Too many people, she says, are still struggling to make ends meet, and that has to change. Well, note that the biggest increase is for those workers 18 to 20-year-olds. Speaking at the CBI this week, Kemi Badenoch was critical of the big increase for younger people, warning that it would deter employers from taking on younger workers.
John, we've had that drip feed of things like that ahead of the budget all week, but also now this talk of jury trials being, well, stopped for everything apart from murder, rape and manslaughter to speed things up. Tell us more about that.
Well, the Courts Minister, that's Sarah Sackman, has said drug dealers and career criminals are laughing in the dock, knowing that cases can take years to come to trial. And she's warning that inaction will be a road to chaos and ruin. She says criminals are going to be stopped from what she calls gaming the system by choosing trial by jury to increase the chances of proceedings collapsing. Now, what has happened is that earlier this year, the government commissioned Brian Leveson. Remember him? The press inquiry. Sir Brian, former retired appeal court judge. Now, he made a recommendation. He said they should stop jury trials for cases, crimes with a sentence up to 3 years. Well, David Lammy, the Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister, has gone further. He's saying that any crime with a sentence of up to 5 years, you'll also not get a jury trial, with the exceptions of, with the exception of rape, murder, manslaughter, serious crimes like that. So he has rape, murder, manslaughter and public interest cases. This has created a row because of a leaked document sent by, written by the Justice Department and sent to Whitehall, other Whitehall departments. Now, the Ministry of Justice has told Sky News this. They say no final decision has been taken by the government. They say, we've been clear there's a crisis in the courts causing pain and anguish to victims, with 78,000 in the cases in the backlog and rising, which will require bold action to put right. So the government will have to bring in legislation, could struggle to get through the Lords with all those lawyers. There is already a furious reaction from the legal profession and indeed from some MPs. Let me tell you what the Law Society has said. Mark Evans, he is the president of the Law Society of England and Wales. He said this. This extreme measure on jury trials goes far beyond the recommendations made by Sir Brian Leveson in his independent report. This is a fundamental change to how our criminal justice system operates, and it goes too far. He says our society's concept of justice rests heavily on lay participation in determining a person's guilt or innocence. Allowing a single person to take away someone's liberty for a lengthy period or decide a potentially life-changing complaint would be a dramatic departure from our shared values. Well, Kemi Badenoch has weighed in on this as well. She says, judges are not just part of our tradition, they put ordinary men and women of every walk of life at the heart of justice. Labour wants to shred this basic right, replacing the common sense of the jury box with rule by lawyers. It's a short-term decision that risks fairness, undermines public trust and erodes the very foundation of our justice system. David Lammy used to agree, so what's changed? Conservatives believe in our traditions and we believe in trial by jury. Now, where she mentions Mr Lammy there, she's referring to something he said back in 2020 when he was the Shadow Justice Secretary. Robert Buckland was the Justice Secretary. Right, he said at the time, Robert Buckland's wrong to consider proposals to limit jury trials for certain offences. The right to trial by your fellow citizens is fundamental to our democracy. It would be wrong of the government to abandon this valuable tradition for short-term benefit. Well, he was saying then in opposition what the Tories are saying now. This was originally proposed when Shabana Mahmood was Justice Secretary. As I say, it will require legislation. Could be a real battle in Parliament, especially in the Lords, to get that through. But the government is saying that, of course, it's desperately needed because of the huge backlog. Sarah Sackman says that criminals are coming into court laughing in the face of the justices, knowing they can go back out on the streets and commit further offences. So it's an emergency measure, certainly, to clear the backlog, but there is very strong opposition from the legal profession, barristers and solicitors, the Tory opposition, and in probably some Labour MPs as well.